comes before Chodesh Adar is 4 Parshias. And instead of making the Haftarah, the reviewing the last few sentences of the Parsha of the week, there are special Parshiyot that we read. The first one of the 4 is, this goes on till Chodesh Nisan. The first one of the 4 is Parshat Shkalim, and that's this Shabbos this week is Pasha Shkalim. So since it's Pasha Shkalim, we can't talk about in the 25 minutes that we have or whatever, we can't talk about everything. Let's talk about Pasha Shkalim, which is the actual this week. Parshat Shkalim, what does it represent? Zois, at the time of the Beis HaMikdash, every Jew bar mitzvah would have to give once a year the sum of Maxit HaShekal. That's written in the Torah. What was done? Because at the time of the Beis HaMikdash there was a korban called Oilas Tomid. The Oilas Tomid was, we have Shachris and Mincha paralleling and Ma'ariv paralleling this Tomid. Why? Because once a day in the morning, Keves Echad B'Boker, a sheep in the morning, and Vein Harbayim at Mincha, another sheep. 2 sheep every day. And that's what Shachris is corresponding to the sheep of the morning. Mincha is corresponding to the sheep of the afternoon. At night, those limbs which were not yet consumed on the Mizbeach, Ma'ariv is not corresponding to a korban. Ma'ariv is corresponding to the hektar chalovim ve'vorim, that what wasn't consumed on the Mizbeach. That's why that went kol halayla, and the Ma'ariv is kol halayla. Ma'ariv is the only tefillah which isn't the korban. If you learn the Seches Brachos, Ma'ariv is meshus. It's not a chayva, just they were makabel upon themselves a chayva, because Ma'ariv is the only tefillah which isn't paralleling a korban. You don't have any other tefillah which is not paralleling a korban. Even Musaf on Shabbos is a korban. Musaf on Shabbos. The only tefillah which is not a korban in itself is Ma'ariv. Ma'ariv is the hashlam, the completion of the karbanos of the day which weren't consumed on this day. That's Ma'ariv. Now these karbanos are the karbanos of the whole Klal Yisrael, the whole tzibur. Where they're supposed to come from? If somebody gives the money, so the whole, the rich man gives the money, so the whole tzibur doesn't have a part in it. So in this, the Torah refers to in this parsha, this mitzvah too. So the Torah says there was a din machzis hashekel. It's hinted in the parsha. Let's see. This is the beginning of parshas Kisisa. The beginning. That's what we read. We read 3 psukim here, 3 or 4 psukim. We read. So it says, so let's see what it says here. Ze yitnu koloi val pikudim. Oh no, it's everything. The pasuk tells about it. It's a good couple of psukim here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6 psukim. Now there's a pasuk like this. So Osho v'yaber v'adal v'yamit mimachsis hashekel v'seises trumas Hashem v'chapel nafsho seichem. This pasuk is referring to v'chapel nafsho seichem. This is specifically referring, from the Ramban's opinion at least, is to this machzis hashekel. Everybody was equal. Everybody had to give from bar mitzvah on this machzis hashekel. Everybody from bar mitzvah and Klal Yisrael had to take a part, and from this money was bought the korbanot tzibur of the whole year, the korbanot of Klal Yisrael.
Even women?
I don't know. The emissaries, I don't know. I was thinking as a saying it. I have to check it in Shkol. I'm not sure. I'll go up and everybody who's passionate, everybody's chayav mitzvahs, but I'm not sure. The says is trumas Hashem. I think that yes. And we have a minig. I think that's the minig. Now, when was this given? Just a minute. When was this given? This was given. So it says like this. It says in the Mishnah, "Ve'echod ba'ado machrizin al hashkol." On Rosh Chodesh Adar, one was machriz that the people should bring the shkol. Rosh Chodesh Adar. Why in Rosh Chodesh Adar? Because it says in the Torah. The Torah was merames that every year, all this is, by the way, Hagdama introduction. One has to know the Netzias before we get to any the Rayonot of Musa. One has to know the practical. Zois oilas chodesh b'chodshei, b'chodshei hashana. Every year, the Torah what's chodesh b'chodshei chadsheu mitrumat halishcha mitruma chadasha. The korbanot had to be from a new medover, every year it had to come from a new nidvas halev, a donation from Klal Yisrael. Every year they had to give for that year. What's the year? The year was from Nisan to Nisan. Rosh Chodesh Chadoshim, Nisan, that began the Kabbanot Tzibur were from the new Kuppah, from the new box of tzedakah, from the donations of the new year. So when did one have to bring it? Chodesh Adar, one had to bring for the new year. Because in Chodesh Nisan began bring the Kabbanos for the new year. So on Rosh Chodesh Adar went out, we'd say today, went out a Ramkol, and went around, and like today they announced the Levias. Rabbi say you have to give Maxis HaShekel. Maxis HaShekel for the new Kabbanos. That's Mechrizin al Ashkol. So could we parallel to this din? That's why we read today, because everything we say when you learn Torah, if you don't have the action, we read the Torah that's connected. We don't have the Kabbanos Tzibah today. So we read the Maxis HaShekel, this parsha, before Rosh Chodesh Adar. It being that at some point next week will be Rosh Chodesh Adar. So either on Rosh Chodesh Adar, prior to Rosh Chodesh Adar, to remind ourselves of this mitzvah at the time that it's a mikdash and Maxis HaShekel. So we read this parsha because that was the Machrizim al Ashkolim, and we read this parsha of the Torah.
This is like the Kol Ram.
What?
The reading of this is like the Kol Ram.
The reading of this is not like the Kol Ram. It is like the Kol Ram, but it's more. The reading of this is because when we have mitzvahs that we can't perform today, because we don't have the Kabbanos, when you are Isaac in the Torah of those mitzvahs, it's as if you perform the mitzvah. So everything is in the Torah. And so when you do learn the Torah, that's just like when you're Isaac with Torah's Oila, Zeis Torah Sa'ila. When Zeis Torah Sa'ila, when you're Isaac in the Torah of Korban Oila, it's as if you were Makrav Oila. So the same thing, everything, all those mitzvahs, when you're Isaac in the Torah connected with that mitzvah, the Torah makes it as if you're performing the mitzvah. So to connect, we don't have the Maxis HaShekel today. So to connect with this mitzvah, we read this parsha. That's the idea. Why do we read it this time? Because this was the time that one was makros, that one announced that one should give the Maxis HaShekel just before Chodesh Nisan. That's the idea of this parsha. But now let's go and analyze what exactly did one have to give. One had to give Maxis HaShekel, a half a shekel. Every single Jew had to give a Maxis HaShekel. So what is the concept of Maxis HaShekel? Why specifically Maxis HaShekel? And what is the idea of this Korban Tamid? So let's, just like a person, this here, now we'll get to philosophy. A person has to know that he is an individual, and he's also, if a person only lives as a separate individual, because a person is only a half. He's part of a tzibur. There's a concept of tzibur. And a person has to understand, because that's the idea, the Torah like this, there's kabbanas yochid. If a person did a chet, he brings a korban. There's a chatas, he didn't perform a mitzvah's essay. He didn't say krishma in time in the morning. He had to bring a korban oila. That's private kabbanas. But then there was a concept in Beis Hamikdash, kabbanas tzibur. So we have kabbanas yochid, kabbanot, sacrifices of the individual, and sacrifices of the whole tzibur together. That means there's two concepts in Yiddishkeit. There's a concept of the individual, and there's a concept of the tzibur. And first, let's talk about for a second the tzibur. The tzibur, like we have tefillah, which is connected kabbanas. The ikar tefillah should be, the tefillah is parallel. We mentioned that tefillah is corresponding to kabbanot. Which kabbanot? The kabbanot tzibur, the tamid. That's why tefillah should be specifically the tzibur. And what's so special about the tzibur? The Gemara says, "V'ani be'eis rotzoin ini sicha." I answer you at a time of eis rotzon. That means an eis rotzon, there's a time in Shemayim that's called an eis rotzon, a time of favor. You know, if you come to the king when he's in a good mood, you might get something which you can't get when he's in not a good mood. It's eis rotzon. Eis rotzon. Then now that Kodesh Baruch Hu he's in rotzon, he's been diva slave, he's ready to give. When is this eis rotzon? Says the Gemara in Brachas Daf Ches. Bizman shahat tzibur yispalu. When the tzibur is davening, it's Eis Rotzen. By the way, I saw that page we have in the beginning of the Siddur, it's a pasuk in Tehillim. V'ani svilasi lecha Hashem Eis Rotzen. David HaMelech V'ani, me, my tefillah to you is an Eis Rotzen. Why by David HaMelech his tefillah Eis Rotzen? Eis Rotzen says Bizman Sharabi Mispalin. Because David HaMelech was a melech. And a melech, the Rambam says, Levavah Shva melech is Levat Kol Klal Yisrael. Melech v'tzibur, the melech nisnech tchilu ledin. A melech has a din of a tzibur. Because David HaMelech says, V'ani, I'm a melech. Tzviyosim lecha Hashem Eis Rotzen. My tefillah is always Eis Rotzen, because I have a din of a rabbi. That's David HaMelech. But the Maaseh, you need a tzibur. Now, why is the tzibur Eis Rotzen? That means there's a concept of tzibur. In Yiddishkeit, we always say that. What do we say? You know, there's a definition. You say the whole is the sum of its parts. That's in mathematics in this Gashmi's physical world. In Yiddishkeit, the whole is not the sum of its parts. It's much more powerful than the sum of its parts. From the Mashal, for example, if you have one person can pick up, let's say, 25, 50 kilo, right? Two people together, they don't pick up 100 kilo. Two people together can pick up 150 kilo. That's how it goes, because the weight is balanced. And that's the concept of tzibur. The tzibur is greater than its parts. The Rebbeinu Shalom is constantly his das. He loves Klal Yisrael. The tzibur doesn't have a chet. Yechidim have a chet. The tzibur, in a certain sense, is always connected with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's why it's Eis Rotzen. Now, Machzis. But on the other hand, if a person doesn't recognize himself as himself, then he has a problem as well. If he's only part of the tzibur, then there's no tzibur. If every yochid is only seeing what he can do, it doesn't have his own individual task, then he's looking at the other one, then there is no yochid. If you don't have your own individual identity, then you don't exist. But if you only exist for yourself, you also don't exist. These two ideas are expressed in the Masechet Avot. If I'm not for myself, who am I? I was given the gift of free will. I have to have responsibility to myself. But keshani la'atzmi, if I'm living for myself, money, what value does it have? You know, and this is the concept of machzis hashekol. Let's read the psukim. The psukim are talking about the counting of Klal Yisrael. So it says like this: Ki sisa, this is the beginning of the parasha. Ki sisa es roish b'nei Yisrael l'fkudeim. There's a mitzvah when you count Am Yisrael. So Rashi explains, B'nosnu, in 1 second, B'nosnu ish koife nafshel Hashem, b'vkoid oisom. When they count Klal Yisrael, even if it wasn't for Kabbonis, there was a constant mitzvah. If the Melech saw that he wants to count Klal Yisrael, maybe to see that they should, to realize the bracha, to thank Hashem for the ribui, the multiplicity, the multitude of Klal Yisrael, how many Nefashos are, and he wanted to count Klal Yisrael, so there was a special mitzvah. So they had to give a kapara in order that they shouldn't break out a plague, a magefa, a plague. They shouldn't die. And what should they do when they count Am Yisrael? There's a sakana that there's going to be a plague. This has to be explained. And what's the tikkun? What's the correction that there shouldn't be a plague? Zayitn. This they should give. Kol ha'oiva pikudim. Whoever's counted, machzis hashekal, to give a half a shekel, truma Hashem. And then, through this, there won't be a plague. So there's two questions here. Why is there going to be a plague when we count Klal Yisrael? So Rashi says, and how is this corrected? Rashi says, there will be a plague because we're counting Klal Yisrael is machnes in them an ayin ra, an evil eye. And the machzis hashekal, which is stocker, and it's coming either for kabbonis, for the tzibur, so this is a kapara and prevents the ayin ra. It's metaken and prevents the plague. So that's the idea. What is counting? The counting is putting the emphasis on the individual as an individual. When you put the emphasis on the individual, this is Mayradin. If a person wants, it's like it says as well, it says a tikkun. Before, in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, in Zman Hadin, a person should try to be part of the tzibur. He shouldn't be outstanding. If he's outstanding as an individual, then when he opens up his pinkas, when he opens up his book in Shemayim, Let's see if this person is roy for the mitzvahs that he had, the zchuyot that he has. That's din. That brings din. The emphasis on the individual, when a person puts himself separate from the cloud, he's in danger. When he stands out, he's in danger. He's standing out as an individual. This itself is ma'ayra din. So the counting, from one answer, the counting is putting the emphasis on each individual. And the tikkun of that is that each individual has to understand that he has a tafkid as the chelik from the cloud. And that's machzis. That's why it's specifically half. The half puts the emphasis that he's a chetzi. He's only a half, he's not complete. If he understands that he's half and he's not complete, this is a tikkun, and this takes off the emphasis as an individual, and takes off the kitrug in Shemayim, the din, and makes him, that's the kapara. Now, the concept of machzis, so let's speak about now machzis. In machzis, we have many limudim, this concept of half. What does it mean that a person has a half? There are perhaps we could say two avodas, right? The mitzvahs are divided into two parts. Bein adam mechaveiro, bein adam memokum. The person has a relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. The person has a relationship with his fellow human being. The person has to understand in his relationship with Hashem that he's only a chetzi. What does it mean he's a chetzi? That person was given free will. The gift of free will. But does he really have free will? He has the responsibility to use that free will. But the success of anything that he chooses depends on Hashem. That means he's only a chetzi. Tzaddikim, even Adam, Yitzray Shel Adam is Gabel Abachoya. The Yetzer Hara tries to win a person over, to do an Avera. And he can't succeed in fighting the Yetzer Hara. The person has to know that all his achievements are only with the Ezer Hashem. He's only a chetzi. That's one concept. The concept that he's not, this is the kapara that's mevatel the din. Machzis HaShekel. He's a chetzi. That's from one angle. He can't do anything without Hashem. In other words, it's the concept of another. Machzis. The second concept of machzis is that the machzis was klapi chaveroi, that he's only a chetzi. I think that Chazal, our Maram is this, what it says in Meseches Avot, Lo olecha hamalacha nigmar. It's not your responsibility to finish. That means each person has an individual tafkid. But that tafkid, no person can complete the full will of Hashem, or the Ratzon of Hashem, or whatever has to be done in this world. Every person contributes something, but every person is basically a half. One has to know that. He's a half. The tachlis of HaKadosh, the tachlis of the Bria, of Vayt Shemayim, is the kibbutz hachalokim, the gathering together of all the different parts. So he's a chetzi with Chaveiro. He's a chetzi and Chaveiro is a chetzi. And that's why, so that's a concept that a person has to dedicate himself to help the tzibur. He himself can't achieve. The final tachlis of, which is the revelation of the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Vayt Shemayim, is achieved from the tzibur. A person has to see himself dedicated, he has to dedicate himself to the tzibur. The third idea, perhaps here, if he understands that each one is a chetzi, goes back to the other idea, b'chira. One of the difficulties in Ben Adam Chaveroi, that a person sees the other one as being, if Reuven hurts Shimon, so Shimon is angry at Reuven. But if Shimon understands that Reuven is only a chetzi behind him, there's no way that Reuven can hurt Shimon if it's not nigzah from Shimon, if it's not the Kriyat in Shemayim. So the concept of chetzi is there has to be, as I said, there's 3 points here in this chetzi. A person has to see that he's a chetzi, but he has to see as well that he's a chetzi klape in relationship to his friends, and he has to be a chetzi in relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On the other hand, the opposite as well. He has to see that his friend is only a chetzi. His friend can't do anything which is not the Ratzon Hashem. And that's the side of the principle of not taking revenge and not remembering something that somebody did you, because it's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's all from Hashem. And if you view yourself as a chetzi, and you view the other one as a chetzi, then there's a tzibur. Because that's what a tzibur is. A tzibur is the gathering of the group together, and that's only if they're united together, then there's formed a tzibur. But otherwise, it's not a tzibur. So the hashkof of chetzi is necessary to form a tzibur. And this is the machzas shekel. The machzas shekel is to put the concept into the person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a mitzvah which has the messer of the hashkofa. Where's the din coming from? The counting is putting the emphasis on the individual. The putting the emphasis on the individual is bringing din. As an individual, you're separating yourself from the tzibur. If you're separating yourself from the tzibur, you're in danger. You need zchuyot. So then what's the tikkun? When you put the emphasis on the individual, you have to remind the individual that he has to run back to the tzibur. How does he run back to the tzibur? He's only a chetzi. The purpose is only, he gives the tzedakah, of a chetzi, to remind himself that he's only a chetzi. He's only a part. The whole purpose is only accomplished by the united efforts together. That's why the machzas hashekel took off the kiprut of the plague. That's the machzas shekel. And there's a remez, I'm building on a gra, there's a remez, the word chetzi, tzadikim b'misosam kruyim chayim. The tzadikim, even when they're not here, they're called alive. Rishoyim b'chayayim kruyim mesim. The word chetzi, you have the middle letter, tzadik. A tzaddik is chai, because a tzaddik always has this hashkofa, he lives as a chetzi. So you have tzaddik, then on the right side of the tzaddik you have a ches, on the left side you have a yud, chai. Chetzi is tzaddik chai, so chetzi. Chetzi, if you make yourself a chetzi, that's tzaddik chai. The Rebbe is, right? Chetzi, ches, tzaddik, yud. So it's a tzaddik, surrounded by the letter ches and yud, it's a tzaddik chai. When you have the hashkof of chetzi, that's a tzaddik chai. And this is we can tie up together to connect with this. The Klayaka stands on this remez. Next week's parsha, we have the midot, the Torah writes the midot of the Oroim, which one in the Kodesh Kodashim, which one put in the Luchos. And the Klayaka stands on this as well there. If you look at the midot over there, all the midos were with chetzi. Oirech HaTeva was Amasai v'chetzi, Orkoi. Rochboi, Goyboi was Amma v'chetzi, and Rochboi was Amma I think, what does it say there? Truma. Everything was chetzi. The same idea. Because the hashkof of chetzi, that's a t'nai to be an oren, to person who is the true oren for the Torah, has to be the person. When is a person an oren? He's a kli to receive the Torah, when he has this hashkof of chetzi. Is it one of the midas? Okay. Right. The length of the Oren was 2.5 amos. The width of the Oren was Amma v'chetzi. The height of the Oren, Amma v'chetzi. So everything chetzi. On the other kelim, one others doesn't see it. Because the concept that a person is a chetzi, this concept of chetzi, this is a condition for Torah, for receiving Torah. If we take it further, the gross, now that I began the chetzi, that it's a whole hashkofa here of a tzaddik, if you take the word machzis, this is from the gross. If you take the word machzis, you have, like you have surrounding the tzaddik, the letters chai. On the outer letters, machzis begins with which letter? Mem. What's the last letter? Machzis? No. Tav. And which word does it make the first letter and the last word? Makes. It's the opposite of chai. Why? Because the machzis, this, when there's a kippur in Shemayim, the machzis, this concept, it pushes away the misa, pushes the misa to the outside, and it's mekarev the chayim. It brings the chayims close to the tzaddik, and it pushes away the mess. That's the machzis hashekel. Because what's a magefa? A magefa is where the malach hamavos is given permission to have shlita. Kivan shenitim l'shus l'mashkas lindoif shuvein l'machil b'tzadik l'rosha. In a magefa, there's a midas adin, and nobody can be saved. So the machzis is this concept. If he makes himself, he runs to the tzibur, he runs away from his individuality, he has no yechidus, he gives himself over totally to the tzibur, then he's betach hatzib, betach ami ani Hashemis, betach the tzibur, that's eis rotzen nisicha. This is the message of machzis hashekel, and perhaps that's the concept, because that's really the concept of kabbanis. This machzis hashekel, let's bring it back now, the machzis hashekel came for kabbanis, The Maxis HaShekel was to what's the concept of a carbon? The concept of a carbon is the same idea, Mesiras Nefesh. The carbon Talmud specifically came to be mechaper on a chet that a person does every day. Which chet does a person do every day? It's interesting, the Rebbe of the Sam Sefer Haflo says, what's the Aveira that a person does every day? So it says like this, there's a lav in the Torah, there's a mitzvah slice according to Rabbeinu Yoina and others. What's that mitzvah slice? Gaiva. Person gaiva that he feels he can do it himself, he feels that he's in charge. This is an Aveira, every person's Gaiva almost. It's known for, there's a pasuk in Tehillim, Ashrei Adam v'yachshev Hashem v'yavon. Ashrei the Adam that he feels this, that he reached the madrega, that he stops thinking about Hashem, he considers it as an oven. It's the opposite is what the Ramah begins the Shulchan Aruch. Shivisi Hashem lenegdi somed. I have Hashem in front of me all the time. That's mimaylas hatzadikim haholchim tovim b'fnei Hashem. That they always go b'fnei Hashem. So in short, there's a mitzvah loisas. It says in the Torah, Ishon alecha pen tishkachas Hashem alekecha. When a person doesn't feel a chetzi, when he feels that he's in charge, that he's over, that's gaiva, and he's over this mitzvah loisas. He's over the mitzvah shikchas Hashem. The korban tamid every day, and this is an aveira that a person is over every day, unless he's on a very big madrega. So it's the haflo in Sefer Panim Yafas. We give him the Chumash Vayikra, I think. So he says that the korban tamid, because it says that the korban is called an oila. Ha'oila aruchachem. What's oila and ruchachem? It's oila is he's oila mis'ala. The person in the mis'ala and gaiva, that's an oila. The korban oila came to be attacking on ha'oila aruchachem. On this, that a person feels like he's in charge. That's the Machzas HaShekel for the Karbonis. So the beginning of Chodesh Nisan. So right before Chodesh Nisan, so here I go back, we had at the end of we begin this set of 4 Parshiyos with Parsha Shkol. The last Parsha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Am Yisrael just before going out of Egypt, HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem. This month is yours. So it means that it's the mitzvah of sanctifying the first day of the month. But the Sephorim says over there, HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem is the gift of time. Time is life. And what's the gift of time? If you use it properly. Time management. A person has free will. The gift of HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem. From today on, Moshe Rabbeinu says to Klal Yisrael, your time will be yours. When Am Yisrael were avodim, when they were slaves in Mitzrayim, their time wasn't theirs. The time belonged to the master. They could not achieve personal goals. The achievement of personal goals, that's freedom. That's the true freedom. And goals is personal goals, which is to do with Hashem, and individual goals, which is the tachlis. Each person has his individual tafkid. HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem. The time now now on will be yours. And what's the tachlis of the Yid? To use his time properly for Hashem, his own personal goal, and to contribute it to the tzibur. So we begin these 4 parshiyos with shkolim, which is the remez that a person has to see himself part of the tzibur. And HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem is the remez b'chlal. In general, his individual b'chira, he has to see that find his individual tumah to that tzibur. That's HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem. Now your time is yours to use it. And this is a Hagdoma to Pesach, which is the Chag of freedom. Chodesh Nisan is the Yetzias Mitzrayim. So this is a Hachon already for Yetzias Mitzrayim, because freedom, the definition of freedom is to plan proper goals of Avodas Hashem and to achieve those goals. That's this.
Clear. So you only